Hello, everyone, and welcome to Friends of the Force, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Brad.
And I'm your host, Sarah.
And today on the show, we have a very special episode because we had the opportunity to go out to Lucasfilm and do an in-person roundtable interview with Andor showrunner, writer, executive producer, creator. He kind of does it all because he's the one and only Tony Gilroy. We were so excited to have this opportunity. We did it alongside our friends over at Skytalkers Podcast and Talking Bay 94, and it was super special. This is a dream for us to be able to do this because we love the show.
Yes, listener, you perhaps thought it was Andover, but it is never Andover here at Friends of the Force.
No.
Yeah, we are so serious about Andor. So when we got the email about this opportunity, we hopped on ourselves across the country to San Francisco and had the opportunity to spend the day at Lucasfilm, where we were given tours of Lucasfilm and ILM, as well as sitting for 3 roundtable interviews. This is the first of 3 and actually the last we recorded. So you'll be getting those other interviews in the upcoming week or so. And we got to see a For Your Consideration screening of Who Are You? Episode 208. It was genuinely an amazing and one-of-a-kind experience. And we're so grateful to Lucasfilm for the opportunity and for all of our fellow podcasting friends who were there who made the day.
And you may be asking, why is this happening? Well, it's Emmy season, baby. Emmy voting is happening starting today, June 12th, and will be going through the 23rd. So Lucasfilm submitted Andor for 23 different categories for consideration, including original music and lyrics, as well as outstanding drama series, which are 2 Emmys that hopefully Tony will pick up an Emmy nomination for when they're announced on July 15th. So I know you and I, Sarah, hope to see the show pick up some awards in the months ahead. And the show is really outstanding for a number of reasons. But let's turn it over to our roundtable interview with Andor showrunner Tony Gilroy.
I watched an old BFI interview you did a talk for BFI, and you were going through a whole, it was a match.
It was a long
Anyway, I went as far back as I really could, and you had talked about writing for the ending as one of your tenets of screenwriting at that time, at least.
Interesting, yeah.
And it's interesting to think now that you were writing towards Rogue One,
Yep.
for Andor. And I'd be curious, when you started the process, when you got close to the end of Rogue One, how you're writing and your
When I got close to Rogue One.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes. As you got there, how did it shift for you, and how did you?
No, I mean, I think the first part of the question is really the important part, which is that and Diego's the first one who really put a pin on this, because he was talking about calibrating performance over such a long period of time. But I think the show being successful really has so much to do with the fact that we knew exactly where we were going, and having a frame, having limitations, having an end sight. It's not just there's part of it that's creative. There's part of it that's helps you shape the volume of what you're going to put in and whatever. But also, quite honestly, for production, for the 2,500 people that are killing themselves on the show, to know that you just have to get there, and you'll have arrived. I would be very nervous. There's so many shows, good, even really, really good shows, where people start off with a great idea and you see it, and then they're like, "Oh my God, it's a success. What do we do?" I would never want to be in that position. I really need to know. You don't want to be a slave to that. You don't want to add it too soon. But by the time I'm starting the script, I really got to know where I'm going.
It's like Luthen saying, always know where you're leaving when you come in.
There you go. Always have a way
A
out.
bit meta there.
Yeah.
But speaking to the critical success of Andor, it takes a village. There's just so many amazing talents that come together for this show. It's like lightning in a bottle. We get it twice. What do you think are some of those core ingredients of the show that make it so successful? And you as a leader, how do you cultivate that environment for everybody to bring in?
Well, I certainly couldn't do it alone. I mean, I can't do it by myself. But who sets the temperature of how the show is going to run? It's myself. It's Diego. It's Zana Wallenberg. Zana, just huge. My brother John, who's running everything to do with post. On the visual effects side, then Moen and TJ, Luke Hall, everybody, those core group. Well, Well, I have to exempt Luke from this. I was going to say there's no Wunderkinds there. Luke is a Wunderkind. I mean, everybody else, Zana and I were employees for most of our careers, and you work on shows and different projects, and wow, I'll never do that. I'll never do that. I'll never do that. That's a good idea. That's good. It's not an employee ethic, but it's just, we really wanted to make a community. And what you realize is that people really want to go crazy and do their work. And so many projects, you're not allowed to do your best work, or you don't really know no one wants to tell you what's happening over here. Or if you'd known about that, you would have done something different. Or we kept total communication open all the time on the show. Everybody who works on the show is a filmmaker. If you see something, say something, raise your hand. If someone has an idea, or tell your HOD and tell us. So it's a wide open communicative show. It's a quickly decisive show. Make decisions quickly. You reserve the right to change your mind, but making decisions quickly, don't leave people hanging up. Be super prepared, and then more than anything, inspire mania. Like, everybody wants to. People got into this thing. Look at this place. I mean, people do this because they're freaking nuts. They, and all they want to do is go crazy. So, like, wow, do it. The Rido pump. There's like an hour more of shit that it does. Like, we went and looked at. We were talking about that the other night, and it's like, that happens every day. So you want to inspire mania. Permit mania.
I love Inspire Mania. I'm going to be thinking about that for a long time. In season 1, we talked about often how you said that it was the education of Cassie Andor. We asked Diego what he thought season 2 was. He described it as Cassian's Awake. How would you describe season 2 for Cassian?
Oh my God. We never had a hook the way we did for the first season like that. Wow. I don't have a really good hook line that I wish I did. I mean, it's how's that coalition? I don't really have I don't have a good hook for that. No, the education part really worked. It's such there's so much abundance in the second half, and it's so, I don't have a good one for that. I'm sorry.
Can still Diego's. The Awake.
I don't like that one. The Awakening? He's awake already. No, I don't like that one so much.
Well, maybe I think destiny is a big part of it as well. So maybe if we could talk about him grappling with self-doubt despite that introduction of destiny to say, hey, you are meant for something, but he's a little afraid of that.
No, well, when we went to do the Maya Pay Brigade sequence and the handoff of the ship, and there was actually another step in there where he was going to go to another planet, and there was a whole thing with an engineer, and they were going to send out. It was more complicated, but we couldn't afford to do it. Can't have that other planet. Okay, but now we still have to do this other sequence. So where are we going to do that? What planet? It's always a question. Well, money was really tight at that point. What are we going to do for planets? And so is there anything we can reuse? And then I called Pablo here, I think, and said, what's on Yavin now? There's nothing there 5 years earlier. Hasn't started yet. It's about to start. It hasn't started yet. Like, holy crap, we'll put it on Yavin. Okay. So once you do that, you put him on Yavin, you add it. That seemed to tip the scale towards, oh my God, this guy's everywhere where something's happening. That started to make me think, sort of like Zelig or something. He's like a Forrest Gump. He's like, why are you here? All these places. So there's a little element of destiny there. I think that I was trying, even though it wasn't in the original mission statement, I think I grew to think that if I could, I should try to get Force in a way that satisfied me, and not be completely not use it, because it would have been sort of abusive to not use it. If I could find a way to get it in, I wanted to get it in. I always loved Ghost, where Whoopi Goldberg is like a former psychic who's now a fraud, and that it's revived. I always thought that was a cool thing. So that's where and we wanted to show, it also gave an opportunity to show the infrastructure. We're very, very tidy about how we show the development of Yavin. Not many scenes, but we're trying to show a lot. Wilmon gets off the thing, and it's like, oh my God, are we going to check in? And there's all these rules and all this crap. And then you see Vel doing the intake thing. And that's, the fact that there's a big catering department, and people are offloading stuff and cleaning dishes afterwards, and the force healer, heals people. It was just, the whole thing fell together.
You brought up that limitation. Sorry, budget limitation, but the whole show, there is limitations. There was COVID, there was the strike, there was the IP itself, right? But I do think that in the end, it really made it just
They always were.
strong. That was a strong thing. I'd be curious, things like the Yavin that you mentioned, are there limitations that you now looking back, which might have been frustrating at the time, but now you're like, that led to this moment?
Dan Gilroy got burned both times. He did Aldani, and in Aldani, pre-COVID, was 10,000 people supposed to show up. It was supposed to be a massive Woodstock, a huge thing. All the Aldanis come up. So that changed everything about, how they infiltrated their way in. There was a whole thing, and they could have costumes, and they could go in, and they could bring a pig to try to trade, and it was a whole complicated ecosystem. Oh no, COVID. I give you 100 people. Whoa. So that's a heartbreak, and that's a couple days of what the fuck, and then you're like, oh my God, they're the Lakota Sioux. This is the dead enders. This is the end of the line. This is like, it's actually so much better. And then then put that in Bihaz's head, and he's, they start with 5,000 at the bottom, but we give them booze along the way, and we weed them, and it's like, oh my God, it's so much cooler. And then he wrote it, we talked about it, he wrote a standalone K2 episode for 9 that was really, really great. Again, that was money, and it would have been cool, but it really, the solve for how we do 8 and 9, 8 and 9 really benefited from clearing out that real estate. And we never would have done it if they'd allowed us to shoot that other thing.
To go back to the Force and Cassian, Cassian and Jenn are both described by Force-sensitive people as having a clear path, which I thought was such a great parallel. Were you intentionally trying to create some of these parallels between Cassian and Jenn when developing season 2?
No, I mean, I know I often thought about, was there any conceivable way to get her in? But it always seemed abusive in a way. It always seemed like if I brought her back, I bring her back for a minute, and that's worse than nothing. And like, what am I going to do? But I know the story of Rogue One pretty well, and so it's. I mean, I have all that in my head, and so it's instinctive at that point, I think. Yes, the answer would be yes.
One of the really interesting pieces through season 1, season 2, and Rogue One is the music that we get. And the tone of the music in each season in Rogue One is different. And we had the opportunity in season 1 to work with Nicholas Bertel, and now he was unable to return to season 2, but got to work with Brandon Roberts. Can you talk a little bit about, bridging the gap between season 1 and season 2 in terms of the music,
Right.
and then bringing that into Rogue One, and did anything that you were doing in the script kind of inform what the music sounded?
I never put it. I mean, well, we knew that I knew that we were going to bring back Niamos. I mean, I know in the script, I knew that we were going to have incidental music where we were going to have it. I knew when we did the funeral, we needed the dirge and all that. So, I mean, in that sense, the writing informs the music. But no, the music always comes afterwards. We always knew, what else? We always knew that we were going to bridge into rogue music, into orchestral music. Near the end, I bet if you asked us early on, we would have said, oh, maybe probably episodes 11 and 12 will probably switch over. As the cues started to come in, as we started to temp, it just didn't work for me. I just kept pushing it. So I pushed it down the line to the very end. Look, Nick, we had 11 hours of music, I think, from Nick for season 1. So we had a huge library of music. And Nick, before the strike, had been able to do a significant amount of episode 4 and some other cues that were a few other spots. So when he was not available, and we got Brandon, the first conversation with Brandon is like, okay, there's a lot of new stuff that we have to do. There's new themes we need from Rao, and we need this, and we need Yavin, and there's a lot of new music and action cues all the way through. And all kind. I mean, it's a big, heavy lifting job, but part of the job is also, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want to use I love the Luthen cue. I love the Bix cue. I love these other themes, and the audience has invested in these. Let's find ways to orchestrate these. Let's find ways to integrate them that fit with what we're doing. And Brandon is just like, it takes a huge amount of ego to write the music, and it takes a huge amount of humility to orchestrate somebody else's material. happily did everything. And I had the same shoulder to shoulder experience that I had with him that I'd had with Nick. I mean, I couldn't ride my bike to Tarzana and work, but it's the happiest place in the whole show for me to do the music. I really, I'm super proud of it. I think when Nick and I started, we thought we knew everything about scoring. By the time when we first met, we were both like, I've done all these things. I really think I'm a stud about this. And Nick Bertel, and like everything's great. We had our asses handed to us by season 1. We had no idea how much we needed. We had no much idea how much we had to learn. And that carried through to Brandon. But really good relay race tag team thing. I'm really proud of the music. Really proud of it.
Yeah, I really want a big box set. The final box set.
They're putting out Niamos now, finally. It's coming out solo, and then they're going to give the stems so that, the certain DJs and producers can remix it. Trying to get it to these weddings for June.
Right, weddings, yeah.
Well, Nick, the Gorman Anthem we put up for Best Song for Emmy. Nick and I wrote that together, words and music. So I wrote the Gorman National Anthem. Yeah, so that may be the Emmy that I win.
That can be the B-sides.
That'd be that Miami, yeah.
Talking about the script, going back and going through your career and the hallmarks of it's very naturalistic. It's very intuitive, especially to a human condition, whether it's Eiffel Flayton, State of Play, or it's The Devil, or now with aliens and with spaceships and all these things. How do you make sure that you're writing your like basic human tenets before the scripts come through? When it's
I never changed my game for any of that. It's just the same thing. It's just make it true, make it real. What happens next? What would really happen next? What would she do next? What would they do next? It's really, it's thread by thread. It's teaspoon by teaspoon. It all has to make sense. And you can't, I want to get here. You can't just get there because you want to get there. You can't have the character's IQ go up and down because you want it to. It's got to be real, and it's got to be tactile. And if it takes me a minute and a half to walk to the men's room, I can't have a scene, I can't have a shootout where all of a sudden I'm halfway. Like, the physics have to matter. Everything has to be matter. Within that, you can go crazy. Then you can have all the pixie dust you want inside that once you do that.
Do you lay that out like in your outline process, or how do you get there?
It depends. If you're writing an action sequence. If we're doing the Gorman Massacre, it's months of, building building Gorman, building the language, but then, okay, well, here's where the massacre is going to take place. And let's have it be a clock so we can tell everybody the time of day, where they are, put the cafe here, here's the hotel, here's how long does it take to walk from here to here. If if Cyril and Dedra have their scene inside the ISB control room up there, how long will that scene take? What has actually happened on the ground? How is it developed in that time? It has to feel real to you as an animal. Like, you can't believe how much you recognize subliminally if a distance is wrong in a movie or the speed of something is wrong. Like, as an animal, you know what things are. And so the closer that you can get to that takes everybody on the team. That takes every department all the way through the whole process contributing to that. And if everybody's on that mindset, everything has to be worked out.
Yeah. Sense.
You mentioned the Maya pay brigade earlier, and I think back to season 1 where Luthen tells Saw, aren't you tired of arguing the people you agree with or the people you agree with? And so drawing a straight line from then infighting without a strong leader to the high command meeting in the same location where Luthen, his trustworthiness is called into question. Nobody's believing Cassian. Bail and Mon are arguing, and there's still more of that infighting despite a formal rebellion. Like, what do you think these moments reveal about
Jump ahead.
building coalition?
Go to Rogue when Jaham's back. That's the scene that clued me into all of this. My God, they're all there at that point, and that's a very contentious agreement. We're not Scarif. We're not going to go invade Scarif. You got to be crazy.
Yeah, Cassian.
And everyone's he doesn't even go in the room. He knows what's going to happen. So they're all building to that, and the Maya Pay Brigade is really there because I knew we were going to get to that kind of stuff, but I also wanted to take the piss out of it. He gives such an elegant speech to Naya. It's so stately, and it's proper, but it sets a tone that's like a little bit. And I want to say, hey, it's not all going to be like that. It's going to be a mess later on. And so I want to give a little hint of the mess that's to come and have some fun doing it, hopefully.
Coalitions aren't easy, that's for sure.
No, man.
Even if you're all on the same page, it's
No, no.
One of the other sides of kind of, I think, the story you're telling is that there also has to be an emphasis on like joy and really what you're fighting for. And I think one of the speeches that I've kind of kept coming back to now that the season has ended was Perrin's speech actually at the wedding. And such a fascinating character to give that speech about joy and like kind of hinting at what you're fighting for, even though he's not really a part of.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way, but that's interesting, you know.
Yeah, I guess I was curious about like why Perrin was the right kind of character to give that speech.
That's much simpler than that. It's that Alistair, I loved Alistair. I think that people didn't quite understand exactly who he was at the end of season 1. You know, there was a lot of like, you know, a lot of, he really got his ass kicked online. Divorce your husband. And, you know, like, oh my God. And like, and I had a slightly different view of, he wasn't my spirit animal, but I was like, you know, I have a slightly different view of, it's a complicated marriage. They've been married since they're 15, and she's certainly not a dream they've made an arrangement, and you know, those marriages exist, and I think he's more sophisticated than that. And so I told Alistair, I think at one point we thought about after she leaves the Senate, she'd maybe go back to Chandrilla and they'd have a big scene together, and that would be the big speech. And I think we thought about that for a while. That's where the Gold Squadron that's where we would do the handoff. We came up with a better way to do that. And I think economically, we didn't want to go back to Chandrilla. The sets didn't work. And I think I remember having to call Alistair and say, we're not going to be able to do that, but don't panic. It's a wedding and you're the father of the bride. And let me see if I can come up with something that makes us all happy. And I really, I'm very pleased that that's in there. It's a completely different point of view. It's a completely legit point of view. They all have their upside and their downside. There's a lot of things that he says that are, you know, epically true, and there's some liabilities to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it totally worked though, because in season 1, it was very anti-Perrin. And in season 2, I found a very complicated character, and I really appreciated that.
You know, Ari Kleinman, who directed those episodes, he's just been a brilliant director. The breakfast scene where she comes down and they're setting the thing and he says, oh, you know, your boyfriend, he got too drunk last night. That scene. It's a pretty good scene on paper, and they were really excited about it. It was a nice scene on paper. It really did. It is directed so well and performed so well. And when the dailies came in, it's blocked. I mean, if you want to see absolutely perfect directorial blocking and camera work and like how it works and how they move, and it's just, it really, that defines their marriage. That you know perfectly. Yeah.
Not to only talk about Perrin, I guess, but I'm curious. At the end, we see him again.
Here's a mother-in-law with Skeldon's with Harunai.
Where do you think that he is in that moment?
Oh, I think I think he's in a place where a lot of parents end up. I mean, you end up. The life of the life of the Lush is just as hard as the life of the revolutionary, right? He's burned out. He doesn't look happy there. I think. What do you think happened to him? I think he somehow through Skeldon and through Leda and their influence, and I'm sure he was squeezed pretty hard by everybody in the ISB, but I think he must have gotten some sort of, you know, imperial Nazi pass to go through, you know, and now he's hanging out with Skeldon's wife. He doesn't look happy. Yeah.
Not at all.
Go for it. You got it. I know you got it.
I guess I'll do a nice grand wrap-up question.
Now that we've spent 10 years with Rogue One, with Cassian, and leading up into this moment, a lot has changed in our world, a lot has changed in Star Wars, a lot has changed for us personally as fans and artists. What do you walk away with this experience and, you know, being a part of Star Wars?
Man, it's I mean, this is the most important thing I'll ever do, I'm sure. I mean, just because the scale of it and the ideas in it and the combination of all the things that it puts together. I'll never have a chance to work on anything. I wouldn't have the energy, I don't think, to work on anything else like this again. It's really daunting. It's really like having children or something. if you knew what it was, you might not do it, and it's really, it was, it was giving blood all the way through. It was also the place that I hid. It was a hideout for me. Every single day for 5.5 years, I had an maximally imaginative place to hide out, and it just never stopped. Now, you couldn't get sick, you couldn't fall down, you couldn't fall behind, but it was a great drug, an unbelievable drug. I don't know. I think it's too huge and too close, and I really feel like I'm in a bubble. I really have to get out of the bubble and see what it really matters. But I'm sure it'll just be an abiding satisfaction forever, whatever forever is.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to our in-person roundtable with Tony Gilroy, and a special thanks once again to Lucasfilm for making this happen. Shout out to Skytalkers and Talking Bay 94 as well for some excellent questions. You guys are rock stars, so thank you.
We also want to plug the other conversation, the other roundtable that happened today, so you can listen to the other conversation on our friends Blast Points, Star Wars Explained, Children of the Watch, and Triad of the Forces feeds. Their conversation is excellent as well, and we recommend it.
Yeah, I'm excited to listen. I don't know what they talked about,
I know. What questions did they ask? What
Oh my God, I'm so
information will we learn?
curious. I know. I'm going to go listen. Listener, you should go listen right after this with us. So, and if you want to hear more from Friends of the Force, we have another roundtable with Alan Tudyk, the voice of K2SO, coming, as well as Margit Pfeiffer, who is the supervising sound editor on Andor. So stay tuned for those, as well as a special fun episode on our trip to San Francisco. So follow us on our socials to get those episodes and subscribe to our podcast feed wherever you listen.
And a huge thanks to our patrons who help make the show happen and who help keep the lights on here at Friends of the Force. You help us to keep recording so that it is truly never and over, and we are super grateful. And I want to say thank you to every listener for being a friend of the Force today and joining us in our conversation. I hope that you are taking care of yourself and are healthy and hydrated, and that you are being a good citizen both in your community and across the world.
Yes, absolutely. So once again, everybody, thank you for listening. And until next time, may the Force be with you always.
Bye.